Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. Let's do a little recap on the Day of Reckoning, which I thought was a fantastic evening's boxing. Really enjoyed it. Where do we begin? Well, there were a couple of ones that sort of went as we expected. I mean, Mark Demore went out in a round, less than a round. Complete and utter mismatch. Probably one of the biggest mismatches I've seen in the last, well, since I've been watching boxing, to be honest. To put a guy like Demore in with 42 years old, wasn't he? And never beaten anyone of note, low-level guy, throw him in with a world-class top tenner like Filip Hrgovic. Yeah, there was only one outcome, and we saw that. Then we have, another guy who was probably expected to go out early, but actually performed quite well, was Junior Fara against Frank Sanchez. I thought Sanchez, it was definitely a mixed bag. Very quick hands, puts his punches together beautifully. But there's just some thread that connects everything together that's missing for me. And I've thought this about Sanchez, because a lot of people, several years ago were talking about Sanchez as being the next dominant heavyweight. And I looked at him and I'm kind of like a show me guy. You've got to show me everything. You've got to show me that you can put it all together. You may have a lot of tools in your toolbox, but you've got to know how to use them. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of raw talent there, and clearly he's had a fantastic amateur career, and he's a good fighter. Don't get me wrong; he's a world-class heavyweight, but there's no doubt Junior Fara came in with some good tactics, and Fara actually, even though ended up getting stopped, I thought he was. He showed some wherewithal. He showed something about him, which I thought was quite impressive, and he can go on and build on this far. He won't be I don't think he'll be a top 10 heavy at any point, but he can certainly be a world-class heavyweight if he works hard and if he eventually learns from his mistakes and turns the negatives into a positive by looking at what he did and what he should have done and how he got eventually caught by Sanchez. And for Sanchez, a very good heavyweight, but if we're talking about a future world champ being able to beat the very best, the jury's still out for me. And I know a lot of you disagree, but that's fine. But I enjoyed that fight. I thought it was intriguing, and well done to Far for putting up more of a fight than I thought he would. Jaya Pataya, fantastic fighter, absolutely brilliant. By far the best cruiserweight in the world for me personally. Some people have said, well, Jordan Thompson and Ellis Zorro aren't exactly world class. No, they're not. They were totally unproven, both undefeated, but totally unproven. But sometimes, as I always say, sometimes it's how you get your work done. It's the manner in which you go about your work. And don't forget, as I keep saying, Jaya Pataya had his jaw busted in two places. Basically, he said his jaw was hanging off by ligaments, and he carried on and beat Maris Bradis, which I thought was a fantastic achievement. But equally as impressively, he didn't have any sort of residue from that fight, from that ordeal. He came back stronger than ever, it seems. What a fantastic fighter. I'm really impressed with Opataya. The Aussies must be loving it. They got some good fighters out there now. Aussie boxing is really shining with both the women and the men. That was good. Now, the fight I enjoyed the most probably was Ajit Kabayel beating up Arslanbek Makhmudov, because Makhmudov came in with the reputation of being a big, strong killer, gets people out of there early, looks incredibly intimidating, he's got that look about him. Ajit Kabayel was having none of it. Not impressed. Ajit Kabayel is another show me guy. You can talk about it, you can look impressive against lesser people, but you're in there with me now. And performed absolutely superbly. I think it was an absolute revelation, Kabayel. Really brilliant performance. I want to see that guy again. And you know that you got someone special when you think, man, I want to see that guy again. Like Opataya, I want to see him fight again. As soon as Opataya is fighting again, I'm going to be watching. Or Inoue, or any Crawford. Ajit Kabayel, I'm not saying he's up to that level yet. He hasn't proved it yet. This was a fantastic win over Makhmudov. But I do want to see him again. He's looked vulnerable in the past, Kabayel, and his career has stagnated, seemingly, over the last 5 or 6 years. But clearly he's been, hiding his light under a bushel, as they say. Very impressive performance. against a guy who could have been, well, I mean, everyone was saying, oh, he's a hugely intimidating top 10 contender. But I'm afraid that mystique has gone now because he capitulated. I don't mean he quit, but he clearly had vulnerabilities, punching to the body. And all three of those knockdowns in the fourth round were body punches. And again, it was only 4 rounds. I mean, it's not like they had a life and death struggle. Caballero completely dominated. And massive respect to the German. I mean, the Germans have got themselves a good heavyweight there. So I really enjoyed that fight, really did. Then you had Dimitri Bivol trying to get the stoppage. Early on, he put the pressure on Lyndon Arthur. Looked like he was going for the stoppage. Beautiful technique. Such a small, light heavyweight. He always looks dwarfed by all his opponents. But he's a brilliant master of going the 12 rounds, the full 36 minutes. Lovely skills. Flows the combinations effortlessly. Great footwork. Always on balance and always exactly where he wants and needs to be, whether that's on the periphery of the range or quickly, stepping into the range. We saw this with Opataya when he knocked out Zorro. He was on the edge of the range, and then suddenly, within a split second, his feet had moved him into range, feint to the body, and then bang, knocked Zorro out. Well, Bivol has the same skill set, but he couldn't get rid of Arthur, who was, despite being flawed, who was extremely conservative, kind of reserved, didn't really try to win. But I don't mean that necessarily in a disparaging way, because it was obvious that Bivol was better than Arthur in every single facet of the game. And sometimes one guy's just better. You've just got to say, look, okay, I'm going to do my best, but Jesus Christ, I can't do anything with the guy. He's just too good. And that's fine. And Lyndon Arthur took his lumps like a man and got through the 36 rounds. I think his stock will have risen. I think he's a European level fighter. I don't think he's world class. But Bivol, he didn't set the place alight, but his style is such that he'll never really do that. He'll always be a technician. People who know the game and know what they're watching will enjoy what he does, but he'll never light up the place like an Opataya. He's just not got that ability to sort of finish a guy quickly or spectacularly. But he is an elite fighter, no doubt about it. So, who else have we got? Oh, of course, we got Big Baby Miller against Dubar. I thought this was a very intriguing fight. I have to say that Miller, the words are sticking in my mouth, in my throat as I say this, but he did win my respect in one sense, in that he took that beating, and my God, it was a beating, like a man, and he didn't quit. And he showed a lot of good old-fashioned guts. And it's a great shame when you consider the toughness that he has, that he went down that cheating path so sort of flagrantly over the years, repeatedly. What a shame, because the guy has got guts. And Daniel Dubois said, I'm going to beat you like your daddy, and Christ, he did. But that was a fascinating fight early on, because after a round or two, Dubois he was huffing and puffing. And you thought, oh, here we go again. Is he going to quit again? Is Miller, is the educated, consistent pressure, mental and physical, going to put Dubois in a place where he's going to capitulate? Well, it could have done, but it didn't. And Dubois, I think, deserves an enormous amount of respect for what he did, for hanging tough. Fantastic stuff from Dubois. I think he answered a lot of questions. I never blamed him for bailing out against Joyce. That's a serious injury that could have left him blind in one eye. The Usyk fight, far more debatable. I mean, I think he quit in that as well. And he just unravelled mentally. He could have done that against Miller, but didn't. And in the second half of the fight, it was an absolute beatdown from Dubois. And I think Don Charles is the man for Dubois. As I've said before, I've talked about this before. I think Don Charles is a fatherly type of guy. He's in his early 60s now. Dubois needs an arm around the shoulder. I know he's got his dad, from ringside. But when you go back to that corner and you're facing some adversity and you've got someone you absolutely trust, who knows what to say, who knows which psychological buttons to punch, I think Don Charles might be the man. So I think, Daniel Dubois, I think he's 26 now. That's nothing. Give him another couple of years, he might be in his prime. But he can have a very, very good career. And I think he's a lot better than people have given him credit for. And they dismissed him. He'll always be a quiet guy because that's his nature. He's a shy fella. Nothing wrong with that, of course. Nothing wrong at all. But good luck to the guy. Really, really liked it. Very, very, very impressive. Very impressive performance. And Miller, have we seen the last of him? Well, at world level, you would hope so, because I still think he shouldn't be allowed to fight. But hey, he did at least show some guts, so respect where it's due. Then we got, was it the two main events? Have I missed anything out on the undercard? I don't think I have. Yeah, the two main events. Now, Deontay Wilder against Joseph Parker. I never would have predicted a points win for Parker. I thought that was one of the least probable outcomes. And I certainly wouldn't have predicted that he would do it, almost whitewashing the former WBC champ. I mean, whatever you say about Wilder, his shortcomings, his footwork, the way he crosses his feet all the time. I mean, the guy can wallop, and he's got a jab that can set up that right hand. It's not a coincidence that right hand has always landed on people's chins. He sets it up well. It's as Paulie Malignaggi always says, it's a one trick pony, but what a trick. We didn't see any of that last night against Parker. Deontay Wilder virtually gave this fight to Joseph Parker on a platter. And I'm not saying that Parker wasn't good. He was good. But the tactics, and I can only put this down to Malik Scott. I can't believe it was JD's who thought this stuff up. Malik Scott's the head trainer anyway, so the buck stops with him. He allowed, his tactics were for Wilder from the off to skirt around the ring like he was on ice skates and allow Parker, who must have been at the very least a little bit reserved, a little bit reticent about the power, to take centre ring. What the hell is that all about? What is Deontay Wilder suddenly a heavyweight version of Sugar Ray Robinson? No, of course he's not. What is he? Willie Pep? Is he Benny Leonard? I mean, no, he's none of these. He's none of these people. He's not Sugar Ray Leonard. He's not. He's not. I mean, Tommy Hearns. People talk about Tommy Hearns' power. Tommy Hearns was a magnificent boxer, and that's why the power was up. As an amateur, Tommy Hearns scored very few knockouts, and then as a professional, because of what the work he did with Emmanuel Stewart, he was able to hone his boxing skills, which were considerable. I mean, this guy outboxed Sugar Ray Leonard, don't forget, twice, and enhance the power, channel the power through the boxing skills. Well, I'm sorry, but Deontay Wilder doesn't have those skills. He's a power merchant. You stick to what you're good at. But Malik Scott had him skirting around the ring and, now, all right, you can say, well, what are you blaming Scott for? Well, again, he's the head trainer, so he carries the can. But we have to also talk about Wilder himself, his attitude towards fighting now. Because throughout the week, he was smiling, he was happy, he was, and after the fight, he was like, well, I thought I won, which of course he didn't. No, when he didn't even come close to winning rounds, winning half the rounds, never mind winning. Afterwards, he was smiling, he was saying, I'm happy, I want to go and see my kids, and I've got Christmas coming up, well done to Parker. All that spite, all that nastiness, all that, I want to put a body on my record, all that, highly distasteful crap that he used to talk, stuff that nevertheless revealed he was a fighter, and certainly the man who, took Fury to hell and back, knocked him down 4 times in 3 fights, and, Fury had to nail this guy to the canvas. All of that was missing. So I don't know whether what is that stuff called that he smokes or drinks or whatever the bloody hell it is, some mind-altering drug. I work with addicts, and I worked in the drug and alcohol field for years, and I've never heard of this stuff. So it must be some airy-fairy new age thing that's probably just a hallucinogenic or a sedative or something like that. I don't know what the hell it is. But maybe he's been doing too much of that, because the spark's gone out of Deontay Wilder. He seems like a happy, content person, and I hope he is. And nothing wrong with that. That's an achievement in life. That's victory in life. But to be honest with you, if you're going to be like that, you can't be in a boxing ring, because you do need the spite, especially if you are a guy who hits hard, who is down to power. It's all about power. So I was stunned, bemused by Deontay Wilder. As for Joseph Parker, great game plan between him and Andy Lee, executed perfectly. He gradually edged his way into the fight and then started to try and stop Wilder. Andy Lee said before the fight, we expect a knockout. They didn't get that. but they certainly had a fantastic victory. I mean, if you can't knock someone out, what's better than winning just about every round? Brilliant performance by Parker, who is back. And finally, we are seeing a Joseph Parker who seems to be sort of edging towards fulfilling his undoubted potential and skills. Because in the past, we thought Parker just goes through the motions, he looks disinterested, there's no fire. It's not that he lacks courage or lacks fortitude. He's not a quitter, not by any means. Look at Joyce, when he fought Joyce. Joyce knocked him flat. And that was only 15 months ago. And now, look, he's won 4 fights in a row, including a victory over Deontay Wilder. Fantastic year for Joseph Parker. What a year. And he's right back in the mix. Make no mistake about it. I mean, he really, really is. And he's more than just, Tyson Fury's little mate. You know what I mean? Because he slipped into that role, and that was rather embarrassing. But he managed to get out of it. I think he's a good fighter, Parker. Definitely a threat to anyone in the top 10. And poor old Joe Joyce, who beat him only 15 months ago, has now suffered 2 stoppages, one a flat-out knockout to Zhilei Zhang. What about Parker versus Zhang? Do you fancy that one? Maybe. And then Anthony Joshua against Otto Wallin. Joshua looking excellent against Wallin. Now, a few people, I watched a video, I think it was a Hatman video, and I think G-Man might have said something about this. But the theory is that Joshua picked Wallin because they fought in the amateurs. Therefore, he was familiar with his style. They sparred lots of rounds. And beforehand, I was thinking, okay, maybe, but no. I think Wallin is able to sort of overcome any sort of. I don't think there are any demons he's carrying because of that. I think he'll do well. The reason he didn't do well is because Anthony Joshua didn't let him do well. Anthony Joshua. This was an excellent performance by Joshua. A perfect blend of power and boxing precision. And okay, he's in there against a guy who doesn't hit particularly hard, but he was in there against a guy who has skill. And when you've got skill, especially what could have become a very pesky southpaw jab from Wallin, Joshua wasn't having any of it. He completely contained Wallin, beat him up, broke him down in 15 minutes. Which I think Joshua deserves a lot of credit because he looked, for the first time in ages, he looked composed and confident. It's an impressive performance. And I think Wallin was actually quite surprised by that, quite deflated, because Joshua kind of beat the fight out of him. Very, very, very impressed with Joshua. Some people have said Wallin was unimpressive. I suppose he was, but again, I think that was more down to Joshua than Wallin. He contained Wallin and beat him up. It's as simple as that. He was just by far the better man on the night. And Wallin is capable of beating some good heavyweights. He's not a bum. He's a top 15 heavyweight at the very least. A top 12 probably. So impressive by Joshua. Maybe the Wilder fight's out of the window. What about a rematch with Parker perhaps? Parker I think has earned it. Or maybe Filip Hrgovic. Joshua and Filip Hrgovic if the IBF belt becomes vacant. And you know what the IBF are like with stripping people. I mean, they stripped Opetaya, which was ludicrous. Didn't need to strip him. They could have called the Zorro fight a non-title fight and let him keep his belt, which would have been perfectly fine. But no, they stripped him. They might well strip either Usyk or Fury, whoever wins that fight, if that fight takes place. That's a video for another time. But yeah, I was impressed with Joshua. Joshua against Filip Hrgovic is something that I would be very, very intrigued by. Or why not Joshua versus Ajit Kabayel? That would be a good fight too, So I really did enjoy this whole card. I thought it was fantastic. What did you think of it? Please let me know. Leave your comments below. And brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Don't forget, we've got Inoue and Tapales Boxing Day. It starts at 8 o'clock in the morning, on Sky. Okay, or you can watch it by other means. A little bit infuriatingly, have family commitments, so I might not see it until later on. So I might be a bit late in getting the videos out for the Inoue fight and the rest of the card, but I will do eventually. But please remember that, because that's going to be Inoue possibly within the space of just over a year becomes an undisputed champion, 2 weight divisions, fantastic achievement. If he does it, Tapales is in the way. Don't write off Tapales entirely. But anyway, leave your comments below if you've got any for the Day of Reckoning. What are your afterthoughts? Thank you, as always, for all your support throughout the year for Joe Stunner Boxing. Much love to you. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and hit the like button and spread the word about Joe Stunner Boxing. Enjoy your Christmas. Merry Christmas. And I, of course, will catch you later. Bye for now.